This is a kind of tutorial, and I want to walk you through the development of my app, the code challenge. Now to start with, I will go through the packages that I use in building this app. First of all, the package .json file. So some of the packages that I use is Apolllo server. I use Apolllo server. I use bcrypt.js. I use graphQL, JSON Web Token validator, and jest. And also, most importantly, I developed this app using TypeScript. So for the preference of what I chose to use for Apolllo server is a great tool in building GraphQL than all other languages like GraphQL Express, Apolllo Server Express. And the result, I decided to use Apolllo server because it's a great tool and I love using Apolllo server. So this is all about Apolllo server, and it's cut across many areas: the Apolllo Studio, Apolllo Federation, and like that. Then the URL that I use for this app is also Prisma. I'll be using Typogram. I just discovered Prisma, and I discovered that Prisma is actually great. It's faster, and I make fewer errors. As a programmer, what you want to reduce is the error time and make you fewer error. So these are the two major libraries that I use for building my app. So the setup has to do with installing my libraries, which include Apolllo server, GraphQL, and the Prisma with TypeScript. So to do this, what I started using Yarn at first, but later I had to switch over to npm install npm. So first, for the Prisma, to generate Prisma, you have to type npx Prisma init. So it's going to generate this Prisma file that we have over here. So it's going to generate a demo Prisma file. Then after that, we can type npm Prisma generate. So it's going to do this. First of all, type npm Prisma init, then followed by npx Prisma generate. So the init is also to add Prisma to our app with TypeScript. And also, we see that in this page we have some types: bcrypt types, jest, JSON Web Token, JSON Web Token validators. So all these are just to ensure that it comply with TypeScript rules. And we have TS node here. This TS node is to run TypeScript in development mode. So that's what I do. So for my model, So I create a model. This one is the data source connection to database. I use Postgres and use the Oracle Progress, which is actually free. In this place, so the data model, the user has an ID, name and password. Then they created and updated and which are defaults. Then we have the profile of the user, and if you look at this place, we have the user ID that link the profile and the users together. So for the profile we have the val, phone and photo, which are all strings. Then the ID is an integer. So with this, and in this place we have a shadow database URL. So this shadow database URL is to that's what Prisma is. So if we didn't include this database shadow database URL, what will happen is there will be permission error. So in order to scale through the permission error, we have to add this shadow database URL. So when we are done setting up our database, we can run npx prisma migrate, then the name of the migration, which is dev in our case. So it will generate this SQL file for us, and this SQL file is being used during the deployment process. So it generated this file for us. So that's for the database. And in setting up the GraphQL server, going to the index, we have in this place we have the server setup. So server, which is an instance of Apolllo server. Then we create our server and listen to that server on this port here. So the default port for Apolllo GraphQL is 4000. Apolllo server is 4000. So it is during the deployment process that I added this process.env port for it, so that in case we don't have this port available, it will use any port that Oracle assigned to it. Okay, now setting up that, we created the schema. So this is the schema, the type div. So we set up our query. The default query is the hello query. Later on change to this query. We have the user query, post query, profile query. So we create our user type in which had an ID, name, email and post. So what I did here, I don't want to expose the user's password to query when we are querying the users. So that is why I didn't include the password in this place. So for the profile, we have the ID, bar, phone number, photos is my profile, which is going to check in front end, whereby this is actually your profile or what. Then also this one carries the user's ID. Then we also have some things that some type here which are required by Apolllo server in order to have a good working server. So what I did here is create a type for users error which carries a message, and the message is of type string. Then create the profile payload, which has to return users error, then the profile, then the auth payload, users error if there's any error. If there's no error, it will give us a token. Then credential input for why we want to log in email and password, then profile input. So for the mutation, we have the sign-in mutation, the sign-up mutation. We have the credential input, email and password, then the name, which is a string, and this one of type auth payload. Also the mutation for sign in. This one is the mutation for sign in, and this is the mutation for creating profile, and this is the mutation for updating profile. So next is the resolver. So for the resolver, we have the queries. We have users query. We have profile query, post as which is social media app, user can get post. Then the mutation. So these mutations has different files. So what we have is, so we create an index which carry all the exports for the mutation, so that in our index file we would have this place jam packed with imports. So this comes from the resolver, and from the resolver we have this index file which carries all our exports to the index file. So now for the mutation, the profile mutation. So this is the profile mutation, which so we import profile and Prisma from the Prisma clients. Then context, the user mutate profile, and coming back to this. So so profile resolver, we have creates profile creates, which is actually a standard for creating a mutation. Profile creates the profile benefit. Then also we create in Apolllo server, there's something we normally use, which is something like this. So we have parents, asks, context, and info. So this is what the parameters we have for the Apolllo server. So in this place, parents, we don't need parents with this, the close it with this. So for our parents, we have to give it a type. So the type we give it is any. If you don't put any type there, it will throw an error. So we represent our parents with this underscore in order to prevent any bugs or something like that. Then for the axe, so our axe is the profile and is of type profile axe, which we created in this place: profile, bio, phone number, photo, the photo. So the bio, the use of this question mark is, it can be in read module. So we represent that with empty string. And also here we have Prisma user info as the context. So the Prisma, the users info, then which is of type profile payload type. So which we have in the type of everything we've created here is of type profile payload type. So users error, then the profile, it will return the profile. So now what we did here, what I did here is that if no users, it will return if the users info that's passed there, if the users does not exist in the database or something like that, we are going to return this message: forbidden access, unauthenticated users. Then the profile will return need. And here in this place we have const with the structure and profile that will pass in this place with the structure it's here, so that with the structure is so that we can use all the profile individually. So if we don't have any phone number, photo, is going to return. We need either one of these in order to create a profile. You must provide phone or to create a profile. We return that error and the profile will be made. Then so if we have all this in place, then we can return users error will be empty. Then the profile will return the data. It will create the profile first, then return the data created with the user ID. So then the profile update is this place is similar to what we have there. Then we are going to check if the users exist or not, or if the users info actually exists or not. So if it exists, then we create the profile and return the profile. So cause existing profile, we have Prisma, find that unique number, the profile ID, find the profile using the profile ID. So if the users does not exist, it will return this error. Sorry, this will be profile, not post. Profile. So profile need that. So let's payload to update equals to this. So not bow delete payload dot bow. So if the users does not update this, then if the user does not update this will happen. Then the profile, we have the principal profile update the profile and return the profile that will be updated. So also the auth, which has to do with the sign in, sign out of the user, the sign up of the user. So before this, we have to create authentication so that we can authenticate our user and authorize them to actually do some things on the server. So to do that, I created something in this place in the utils, get users token. So using the JWT, that's JSON Web Token, I created this to get the users token, creates a token for generates token for the users. Then we have users can rotate profile. So if the users have checking if the user have access to create profile, update profile, like that. So we create a type user ID, profile type, and the Prisma, which carry the Prisma clients. So we have user ID. Okay. So to create a profile, we have to find the user ID first. So if we do not find the user ID, user not found, we throw user not found, then the profile will be new. It will return a new profile. So if we find the user ID, then where profile then, so if we find the user ID, then the user can create a profile. So in this place, this is JSON web token. So return JSON.verify, return the token and the JSON signature, which I use this key for it. So I export the key and create a key for that. That is required by the JSON web token. So now back to the auth. So for the auth, we create a type for sign up asks, which carry this credential, email and password, then the name, then the sign in type. We have created something in credentials, the email and password. These are what is required to sign in. Then also the user payload carries user's error, the token. So the auth resolvers, we have sign on, no parents. Then we have the asks, the context, we don't need the info. So we destructure these credentials that we have here, these credentials, and destructure it here, the email and password, extracting the email and password, because I need to validate each email and each password. So cost, I use validator to check if the user's input is actually an email. So if it's not an email, it will return this message, email, invalid email. So I'll check for the password. If the password is valid, so for checking the validity of the password, what I use is minimum length of 5 for the password. So if the password doesn't meet this requirement, it will return invalid password like that. So then the name, if check for the name too, and then once they enter their password, the email, we need to hash the password using bcrypt.js. So to hash it, we say bcrypt.hash, which is SN connects that will be used from this place. So we need to await that. We need to await this. So hash the password, then pass in this integer in this place. Then also, if the password has been hashed, so in our database we are going to create the user's accounts using the email, the name, the hash. The password is now carrying the hash password. What we have is actually a test to see, to create a profile. So in this place, the users have been created here. So we need to generate a JSON web token, a token for the users. So we generated a token for the users here. So JSON web token dot sign, taking the user's ID. So we don't want, what I did in this place is I only want to expose the user's ID. I don't want to expose the user's email or the user's password. That's why I pass in the user's, only the user's ID to JSON web token dot signed, and the JSON signature that I created in the key.ts. Then it carries another parameter, which is the expires time, the expiry time. So with that, we create a user's account with that. So the next thing is the user sign in. So to sign in a user, we have to create these credentials, which is this user's credentials, create the email and the password is what is actually required to sign in into the app. So I destructured this in this place, email and password, because I need to do some validation with this email and password. So once the user inputs the email and password, I need to check the email if the email exists. Then if the email exists, so if the email does not exist, what I did here is invalid credentials. So I intentionally did this because in a web app it's not advisable for you to say invalid email if it is the email that's not correct, because once they enter a password and they say invalid email, they will have it at the back of the mind that this password exists on this database. So and they leave the password and they're looking for the email that matches that password. So that is why I use invalid credentials and also in this place to invalid credentials. So once the email is not correct, it will return invalid credentials. So now we check for the password, which I use is match. I wait create compare. So I compare the user password with what we have on the server. So if the password is not correct, it will return this. So if we have the password, the email that is correct, we sign in the user using the user ID, then create a JSON web, return the JSON web token for that users. So to get my mutation, I create a file for mutation so that I will have a single export of all my mutation. So I created a file for it which carries all the mutation, auth resolvers, profile resolvers, which we use in the index file in this place, or everything coming from the index.ts in the resolver folder here. So that is for the mutation and the resolver. So for the query, we have in this place the users query the users with their post, considering it as a social media app. Then we have the query in this place, the post query, and we also have the post mutation in this place. That is, user can create posts, user can update their post, their own post, and user can delete their own post. So you cannot just go there and delete any other person's post. It is because you are not authorized to do that. So let me quickly run through what we have in this resolver. So here we use users info for bidding access or authenticated. You can create posts if you are not authenticated. So if you're authenticated, you can create posts, and in creating your post will require a title and context. So if you didn't pass title, you didn't pass content, we return this, then you must provide title and content to create a post. So if you provide the title and the context, then you have successfully created a post and you return the post out in the data. So for the update post and also delete post. So that is for my notation. So a quick rundown of the app. So this app has already been deployed to Oracle. So it has already been deployed to Oracle. So if you okay, slowly. Yeah, so this is the link for the deployment to Oracle. So right now we are in the Oracle server. Also already deployed this. Now I have created something here. So in this place, if I run this now, this user already exists in my database. If I run this, it should give me an error. My mouse is misbehaving. Let me stop this.